Jake Tapper has this Biden book out. Everyone's been talking about it. He's done a lot of interviews with big people like Megyn Kelly, and they've all asked him to state the obvious, which we all suffered from viewing each and every day when he was in his regime, and that is that Biden, has age-related dementia. The only mystery about it is what kind. Is it Alzheimer's? Is it Parkinson's? We don't know, but he has dementia, Joe Biden. Everyone knows this. We saw it every day. So this book is just stating the obvious. And the question I've been asking since Jake Tapper came out with this, before the book came out and during this book tour, is why is he doing it? Why did Jake Tapper, who really isn't an author but is Captain Obvious here, Joe Biden had dementia. Shocker. I'm glad there's a book about it. I can't believe what I'm reading in this book. There's something going on with Jake Tapper. He's a liberal. He hates Trump. He hates MAGA. What's going on here? Well, he did an interview with this liberal woke podcaster, Scott Galloway, who is an NYU professor. He's very woke, very liberal. And in this interview, Jake Tapper spells it all out. And this is the story, not that Joe Biden had dementia and they covered it up at the White House. Everybody knows that, right? But here he is. And this is actually a confession by Jake Tapper. Let me share this and we'll talk about it a little bit.
My son is now 15 years old, and he's a gamer. He's a football fan. He's starting linebacker on his varsity football team. The Democratic Party has no way of communicating with him. They have no entree into his world. And in fact, it's interesting. I went on a left-leaning podcast that shall remain nameless.
Oh, come on.
And we were talking about my kids, because I think they were both people without kids. And they asked me about my son, and I said he was, he's a football player, and he wants to be a policeman. Mm-hmm. And their joke was about my 15-year-old son. Oh, how does he feel about minorities? Like the idea that he wants to be a policeman, therefore he's racist, my son. And that was the big laugh. And then I got dragged in the comments and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, this is why you fuckers are losing elections.
100%.
Like my football playing son, who has no political views. He's 15. He thinks about World War II and gaming and playing linebacker. That's his world. You're deciding he's a racist because he wants to be a cop. And why does he want to be a cop? He wants to be a cop because he wants to help people, and he thinks that's the best way he can help people. And that's how the Democratic Party talks to men, not just white men, but men. And, I get the idea that they thought Tim Walz could, what's the term he used? Code switch or something? He thought that he could translate the Democratic Party values because he hunts and fishes and owns a gun and was in the army and drinks a beer. At least there was an attempt. But I find it just insane.
Yeah. And this woke podcaster, he said, yeah. So he's agreeing with Jake Tapper to at least some extent. And this is an amazing thing. So here's the question. Has Jake Tapper been red-pilled? I think he has. I really think he has. Now, he may be red-pilled and not know it. A lot of things in life I've learned in my life, you have to experience. And then when you experience something, then all of a sudden you understand it, right? He has had an experience with his son that has woken him up to some truths about the Democrat Party that he's been promoting so long, and has really been his job at CNN is to promote these Democrats. And his son had this experience, and boom, all of a sudden he's got a different opinion. So I think that Jake Tapper has been red-pilled. I really do. Now, again, he may not be aware of it, or he may not admit it publicly because he's afraid of what impact it would have on his career. He's not going to go rogue and then become a member of the new media like Megyn Kelly or Tucker. has a contract with CNN with a non-compete and everything else. He's got a kid that's young, that's expensive with his wife. I'm sure they live a lifestyle based on that CNN salary. So, he can't wait out the non-compete and hope that Fox hires him. He's going to stay at CNN, at least for the foreseeable future. So I don't expect him, if he's aware that he's been red-pilled, to come out about it. And he might not have been fully red-pilled, but he is having really an experience here. And it's an experience that a lot of people have had when it comes to the modern Democrat Party. I was watching an incredible interview with Raymond Arroyo as the host. Raymond Arroyo, you guys familiar with him? He's on Fox all the time. And he has a show. I don't know where it airs, but I saw it on YouTube today. And he interviews a lot of celebrities. Sometimes he doesn't do interviews. Sometimes he's just talking, but it's very interesting. Raymond Arroyo. And he interviewed David Mamet, who's a Hollywood screenwriter. He's a playwright, and he's also a director. Oh, that's my daughter calling. I got to see what's going on. That was my daughter calling me up, asking if I want to meet up with her this afternoon. And, of course, the answer is yes. She just moved back to Florida from California, so this will be like the 5th or 6th time this week I've gotten together with her. She's been back for 8 days. She moved back to Florida. We're very excited. All right, so anyway, I was watching this interview on YouTube, and you guys should look it up. It was fascinating, with Raymond Arroyo interviewing David Mamet. As I said, he's a Hollywood screenwriter. He's a well-known playwright. He is also a director, and he's the writer of Glengarry Glen Ross. Always be closing, right? That's his line. That's his writing. He wrote and directed maybe the last great movie that Gene Hackman was in, which was like 24 years ago. It was called Heist. He wrote The Untouchables, Sean Connery, Kevin Costner, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So he's a well-established person. Well, he's a Republican. He is MAGA, David Mamet. I mean, hardcore MAGA. And he was talking about the Democrat Party machine. And, he grew up, he was born and raised in Chicago, and I guess that's where the Untouchables came from. But anyway, he said this in a very long interview, so I'm going to be a capsulized version of this. But he said when Trump was reelected in November, that's the day that the Democrat Party machine died. And I don't think that's the day it died. I think the Democrat Party, I get what he's saying. I'm not disagreeing with him. I'm going to add to that. I think the Democrat Party machine died when the Never-Trumpers shot President Trump in Butler. That's my opinion. And when Trump was reelected in November, that's when it was realized. Everybody knew the Democrat Party machine was over. And he was talking about the Democrat Party and how it's over. And you can hear it with Jake Tapper there talking about it with this liberal podcaster who agrees with him, at least in part. And in this interview, David Mamet, he went on to say that the Democrat Party, which is hopeless right now, it's over for them. And he's happy about that. I'm happy about it. We're all happy about that. But he said that they don't relate to young people, so they have no up-and-coming new Democrats, right? I know David Hogg's running around trying to do some things and mentioning Jasmine Crockett's name. And when David Hogg mentioned the name of Jasmine Crockett, that was just him doing a shout-out, hoping that she would latch on to him and save his future as a leader in the DNC. That's not going to happen because they got opposing things. But anyway, and this was what David Mamet was talking about. He says they have no up-and-coming Democrats because the youth are going towards Trump, right? In the MAGA movement. And that's very, very obvious. I think we all see that, right? And he said the older crowd, they can't save it because for them to try to save the Democrat Party, they would have to admit that all this wokeism has been incredibly destructive and is destroying them. And they're not going to do that because for them to do that, in their mind, would be an admission that everything in their life that they've stood for and fought for and advocated for was wrong, and they can't get themselves to do that. And he made a very good case with Arroyo, David Mamet did, that the Democrat Party is over, at least in the form that we know it, as a major party. And I got to agree with that. And this admission by Jake Tapper, I call it a confession of him having this experience with his son, is proof positive of that. It's absolutely amazing. And you watch this and you're like, wow, Jake Tapper said that. And with all the press coverage that he's getting, this little clip here, which I think out of his entire book promotion tour on other shows and on CNN, this is the most newsworthy moment on this liberal podcast with Jake Tapper that's out there, and no one's sharing it because the mainstream legacy media don't want you to know about that, do they? Absolutely not. But you know what? We do know about it. And I'm going to keep that soundbite. I might play that on a few programs throughout the week because I think it's so important to get out there. I think I'm going to share that several times through the week. I think it's that important. You know, when you have Bill Maher going and having a private dinner at the White House with Donald Trump, and you have Jake Tapper talking about the sexist bigotry that his 15-year-old son is experiencing at the hands of the left, they're done. They really are done, and they have no way out of it. Oh, man, Mike Lindell and MyPillow. What a life changer he's been for me and my wife and my entire family, because my entire family are sleeping on MyPillow bed sleep systems. In the MyPillow sleep system, I've got the MyPillow mattress. I've got a MyPillow mattress topper. I've got the MyPillow 100% Giza cotton dream sheets, and my wife and I have all the MyPillows too, and our family have all these things too because we give them as gifts to people. And let me tell you something. If you've never slept on a MyPillow or the Giza dream sheets, you have not had a good night's sleep. You may think you have. You may think you do, but you don't. You know, Mike Lindell and the MyPillow products are out of this world. You know, the MyPillows themselves, what they do is that patented fill that Mike Lindell invented. It stops your head and neck from moving around at night. Every time you move your head, you may not be aware of it. You may not remember it, but you wake up out of that REM sleep. It's like having sleep apnea. It interrupts your sleep all night long. The Giza Dream Sheets, oh man, the 100% Giza cotton. Huge specials on all these products, by the way, with my promo code Kane at checkout, Kane. The Giza Dream Sheets are made of 100% Giza cotton, which is the finest cotton in the world. And no matter what time of year it is, it keeps your body the perfect temperature all night long. It's absolutely amazing. Here in Florida, we're getting into the hot summer months. It's in the 90s every day. You're sleeping with these Giza Dream Sheets. You are the perfect temperature. In the winter, it's the same thing. I don't know how it works, but Mike Lindell, he developed these sheets, and boy, oh boy, do they work. But, you know, you can use our promo code Kane at checkout on all the specials at MyPillow.com. You can save up to 80% off with our promo code Kane at checkout, Kane. And remember, every time you use our promo code Kane at checkout, you are supporting this program and all the content I bring you, which includes my podcast, my YouTube channel, and of course, the morning radio show. So it's promo code Kane, Kane, at checkout at MyPillow.com. Charlie Kirk's absolutely amazing. If it were not for Charlie Kirk, we would be in so much trouble in this country. Donald Trump still would have won, but it would have been a more difficult win, and he wouldn't have performed as well with young people as he did with the help of Charlie Kirk, who's been out there. Charlie Kirk's absolutely amazing. And I mean, I love this guy. He's such an important person to this country, Charlie Kirk. And he went over to England, went over to the UK, and went over to Cambridge and started debating their college students like he debates college students here. Now, the difference between Charlie Kirk debating these Cambridge liberal college students and our liberal college students is, you know, Cambridge is the upper crust of the college students in England, and they have that stereotypical proper British accent. And that stereotypical liberal British accent, it may make their liberal hate and ideology sound a little bit more intelligent, but it really doesn't, and it sounds just as stupid, just in a more proper way than with our college kids. But I wanted to share some of this because I was watching this yesterday on X, a few of the clips of Charlie Kirk with these Oxford students, and it really is sad that, you know, England is lost. They're just lost. It's really hopeless. And, you know, we were close to being lost in this country. We really were. And what had happened with us in this country is we've had a couple of decades of brainwashing of young people into thinking that this country was the root cause of the world's evils, as opposed to the United States being the root cause to the freedoms that we have around the world. You know, the United States is the oldest democracy. Now, liberals and wokesters will say, no, the Greeks. A few thousand years ago, we're talking about in the modern era, okay? When our founding fathers declared independence and formed this country, the world was run by kings and queens and emperors and tribal chiefs. This is the oldest democracy in existence in the United States, and it has been the role model of democracies around the world, and that's without question. But the United States, founded by the British, I know there's other countries involved, I get it, but England is where our culture comes from. They didn't have the democracy. We brought it, but you understand what I mean. And it's really sad to see what, in many ways, is the motherland of the United States, right? Is England is completely lost. And you listen to these kids in England, England's hopeless. I mean, it really is for them to recover. Their whole civilization has collapsed. And it's a very tiny place. So it happened, and it's almost impossible to reverse. They've tried to do that here, and they have pockets like in New York City and some other liberal universities in the Northeast. But we're a big country, and the way that our system works in this country, they weren't able to do it, right? You know, in a small country with a parliamentary system, you know, you got to understand, with a parliamentary system like they have, the prime minister is like the Speaker of the House, right? So because we have the different system and the Electoral College and all of that, which does not give too much power in a presidential election to a particular party, and we have different states and everything, we were able to save this country from being lost. England, it's over. So let me play some of this. This is Charlie Kirk in Oxford.
Let me ask you, in the conflict of Israel versus Hamas, who's the good guy?
I believe both Hamas and the Israeli government are evil, but
okay, are evil. Now, wow. Let me rewind a little bit. I can't leave it paused on that kid. He looks like John Merrick. If you don't know who John Merrick was, look it up. So, you know, I support Israel without apology. Okay, Israel was attacked. It was an unprovoked attack. And it was an attack that was barbarian in its nature, attacking that music festival and doing everything that happened. So I'm not going to get into all of what happened, because if you're listening to this program, you know, okay, you know what happened. I don't agree, but I understand an argument that some do-gooders are making, that the Israeli response in Gaza. I don't agree with it, but I hear them. This guy says both Hamas and Israel are evil. Well, I don't think Israel's evil at all, but he does. There's no moral equivalency between the two, okay? There is no moral equivalency. Israel has a very powerful military and a nuclear arsenal. They don't use their entire military strength or their nuclear arsenal, which they could. And some people may say, well, they don't do that because of this or that. When you're evil, you don't think about the long-term effects. You just do it. Okay, and they use a lot of restraint against those that are after them. But anyway, let me play the rest of this. I'll rewind it a little bit.
I believe both Hamas and the Israeli government are evil, but I think also that there is no justification.
Are they equally?
There is no justification for the murder and mutilation of thousands of innocent people and children.
Let's
It's a futile.
let's zero in on it.
There is no.
What did you see what that kid did? There's something off with this kid. Did you see how when he got the applause, his body started jumping? He got excited. Watch.
Of thousands of innocent people and
Watch.
children.
Watch his legs.
Futile.
Let's zero in on it.
There is no justification, Mr. Kirk.
What is that about? Yeah, I know. Applause has an impact on this guy that causes a reaction that I've not seen before.
Let's
It's a futile.
let's zero in on it.
There is no justification, Mr. Kirk,
Hold on.
for invading hospitals, for bombing innocent populations, and dragging out a war which is damaging Israel and the West's security.
You've made that point, but
It's not a point, it's a moral truth, isn't
okay,
it?
yeah. It was also a moral truth that the war started because 1,300 Jews were killed and 200 were taken hostage. And when you declare war on Israel, expect a firestorm in reaction. Let me finish, I let you talk. Israel, at its holiest day of the calendar year besides Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, Samat Torah, the 50-year anniversary of the Six-Day War. On Shabbat, Hamas invaded Israel, deciding to go recklessly to music concerts, to homes, to kibbutzes, and taking 200 plus hostages. They knew what they were doing. In one of the most cloistered urban environments on the planet, 2 million people live in a place where it's impossible to wage war. Impossible. Where they wear civilian clothing, they violate every tenet of the Geneva Convention, and the IDF, when they do something right, they get no credit. When they do life-saving surgeries of a Gazan child, they get no credit. When they drop leaflets, they get no credit. But when they happen to bomb a place where they are operating their military from, which we now know from third-party verified sources, hundreds of Hamas military operations are in mosques, schools, and hospitals. I'm sorry, the country where they were living in relative peace on October 6th, that all of a sudden we had a war and Hamas started the war. And I don't see people that were really upset about the 2 million Germans that were killed in World War II, civilians. A tragic truth of war is that civilians die. I don't like it and you don't like it. And they brought it upon themselves. The only operation and entity to blame is the leadership of Hamas, not the Israeli government, for fighting this defensive war after they were invaded. There is a good guy and there is a bad guy. I honestly...
Isn't that the morality of a child?
Well, hold on. It's interesting you say that, because a child who knows that Israel is the good guy, Hamas is bad, has a lot more wisdom than a student like yourself at Cambridge University. Okay.
Now, a few things here. By the way, if you guys Googled John Merrick, you'll get that comment I made. A couple things here. You know, Charlie Kirk's very well informed. I tell you, he's a very smart guy, very sharp guy. He's got a lot of information. You know, this is such a sad... He mentioned the Germans in the Second World War. Here you got a young guy that's got some body-jerking things going on there, whose country would have fallen if it were not for the civilian bombing. It really is a sad thing. I'm not coming out in favor of bombing civilians in wartime, okay? World War II was a separate event, but the policy of the Allies, led by the United States and the United Kingdom, was to bomb the civilian population, the Dresden bombings. And they did this to let the German people know that the war was lost and over. They had to break the will of the American people. I don't know but at least that was the strategy, and it worked. And this Oxford kid is free today and living in the United Kingdom, sharing his bizarro views on the world because of that, right or wrong. But that's what happened. Now, the reason that Israel has gone so hard into Gaza, it's simple. I don't think. Do I have to explain this to you? I'm going to explain it because there are wokesters that are listening. It's not a tit for tat. Okay, you come in and you do this, and we come back for the same. You know, I was talking about David Mamet earlier, the screenwriter that Arroyo had interviewed, and in The Untouchables, which he wrote, there's a famous line that Sean Connery has, and he's talking to Kevin Costner. He says, you got to do it the Chicago way, right? The Chicago way. He puts one of yours in the hospital, you put one of his in the morgue. Or was it two of his in the morgue? But you understand what I mean. Israel's response is to send a message to the enemies of Israel, who were vowed to wipe out the Jews, that hey, you come after us, especially in a civilian attack, the response is going to be overwhelming. And look at what you're risking. Look at Gaza. That's why they're doing that. Right or wrong. I mean, I support Israel, but that's why they're doing it. I think most people know what they're supposed to do, the exact same amount of damage that was done to them. That's what they did. That's a stalemate, and they're fighting in a way to have lasting peace. Here's another clip of Charlie Kirk with a girl in the UK.
Trump support was worse with young people in several battleground states than 2016. How would you respond to critics who claim that this failure was partly due to Trump outsourcing youth outreach to Turning Point USA?
How did he do this last election?
Well, I mean, his support was better in...
See, she's talking about 2016, you know, even though this was just a few days ago. She's talking about 2016, not the last election, not 24, with the youth vote. Very strange.
Last election.
Well, I mean, his support was better in youth, but it was still lower with the lower amongst youth than the Democrat support was.
We won the youth vote in the state of Michigan, and we ran basically the entire youth operation in 2024. In fact, it doesn't. Anyone can look on ChatGPT, Grok, or Google. I mean, whatever you want. Like, we crushed the youth vote. Even Democrats acknowledge it.
That's
There's
right.
Story after story after story. Why are young people moving so far to the right? And so, will you give me credit for that?
I mean, why do you think that, like, in several key states...
See, she's got the proper British accent, but it's still liberal crap, right? It's just like these kids at the American universities trying to debate Charlie Kirk. She just has a fancy, expensive chair in that proper British accent, but it's still liberal gobbledygook, and she can't find a note there that'll give her an answer to what Charlie Kirk just shared with her.
States, even in 2024... amongst the young people.
We did anywhere between 10 to 25 points better in the key battleground states. This is not just conjecture, it is material fact. Both young men and young women moved to the right dramatically. In America, young people are Donald Trump's most loyal cohort, not even baby boomers. According to the Yale Youth Poll and the Harvard Youth Poll, Donald Trump has actually made the most gains amongst younger voters. And I guess maybe something we did had something to do with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we did better than in 2016. In fact, we did better than in any election in a long, long time with the youth vote, in large part because of Charlie Kirk. We didn't have a ground game. We didn't have an organization like Turning Point USA and their effectiveness in 2016 that we've got now. You know, they're not just on, Turning Point doesn't do work just on college campuses. They do work with high school students as well. And those high school students become college students, right, and adults. So, no, Turning Point USA, yeah, we did perform better with the youth vote than we did in 2016 by a lot. And we're going to continue to do even better in the future. Okay, here again, didn't he do great? But you see these college kids. And these aren't just regular college kids. These are the elite in the UK. Here's Charlie Kirk again.
Feminism is the glaring thing in front of us where we have fertility rates down, we have marriage rates down, we have unhappiness up, and we did something in the 1960s out of the universities of Brady Friedan and Gloria Steinem and all these feminists that basically said you're trapped in a home, go get a job, freeze your eggs, take birth control, and all of a sudden women are way unhappier than they were 40 years ago. And I just have to ask the question, why is that? Is it working? And maybe there are biological differences between men and women that we should respect, and that deep down a lot of women want to get married and have children. In fact, we should applaud it, and we should support it, and we should say it means nothing if you're going to go be a CEO of some shoe company or be some banker in London. What matters if you raise children and you have something to pass down long after you're gone. Do you agree that the happiest women of the West are married with kids?
I would have to look into it, but I think there are certain
and objectively we know that, right? The women with kids are not the ones tearing down statues, right? They're the ones that actually have obligations.
Does tearing down statues correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware of?
Again, it's like it's a little bit of a one-liner.
I don't know what she's talking about. Yes, people that are tearing down statues, they're not just angry; they're breaking the law. And when you have a family, which is what he's talking about, right? When you have a family, you're not tearing down statues because you've got responsibilities and you can't get arrested. You might lose your job. Or if you're a stay-at-home parent, you won't be there to take your kid to school the next day. So you can't go out and commit crimes like tearing down statues because you've got responsibilities, right? The only people that can tear down statues are people that have nothing to lose. Pretty good points there. Charlie Kirk, here he is with another English student who is, I think she's Muslim.
Now, I know you've debated Dean Withers on Jubilee before. I was wondering why you now refuse to
Now, this is some YouTuber that they want him to debate.
Engage with further debate with him.
I flew 5,000 miles across the world to have you ask why I'm not going to debate a left-wing YouTuber.
Well, I mean, he continuously tries to get your attention at your campus.
Again,
you just ignore him.
I've debated him twice in the last calendar year. He's coming on my show this summer. Let me be clear. I came to Cambridge to have you ask me that.
Yeah, he's making videos about you avoiding him on your campus debates.
Right. So let me tell you how this works. I do a campus event like at Texas A&M University. I rent it out. I'm there for 3 hours. He shows up demanding to come up to the mic immediately, cutting in line of other students. It's not Joe Biden's America anymore where you can just cut in line and get whatever you want. So therefore, I say, excuse me, Dean, we'll talk at another time. He makes this YouTube video as if I'm scared to debate him, even though I debated him twice in the last year.
Okay. Yeah, now this one, I didn't mean to play that clip. I was watching that, but I played it, so I'll talk about it. I got one more clip of Charlie Kirk. This person is obviously, they're trying to use Charlie Kirk's clout to get attention. And I like how he pointed out that he cuts the line at the schools here in the U.S. and thinks, he tries to hijack the event. And you hear what Charlie Kirk said. When they go to these schools, they're renting the space to set up a tent and do these debates. So what, some random person is just supposed to, without having any financial role in renting this space at the school, they're supposed to hijack it and make it their event? Typical entitled leftists, whoever they are. I never heard of them before. But like I said, I didn't mean to play that clip, but, whatever. I played it by mistake. Okay, here is one more clip of Charlie Kirk. And this is at Cambridge.
I agree that stable monogamous relationships often produce the best outcomes for society.
Oh boy, this guy's got a hair bun. I don't know. Does anyone want to be involved in a monogamous relationship with a man who's got a receding hairline, is in college, and has a hair bun? Not me. I cannot imagine a woman wanting to date a guy with a hair bun or marry one. I mean, what's the hair bun all about, by the way? Anybody know? What does that symbolize? Is that one of those Hare Krishna? Is he Hare Krishna?
Comes for society. But if that structure really works for everyone, why do we consistently see societies, once they become safer and more prosperous, move away from traditional monogamy?
Okay, so the first one, the second law of thermodynamics answers your question, is that it's the law of decay. Societies tend to decay against the roots that created them. For example, as a side note, here in this country, you guys invented the idea of free speech. You brought it to the world. You guys do not have free speech in this country anymore. 30 people a day are arrested in the UK for inflammatory social media posts. It is normal, unfortunately, for civilizations to get away from how they once operated and how they once were. Prosperity leads to degeneracy, for sure. And so,
okay, so I'll add something to that with Charlie Kirk. I agree with what he's saying, but that's not the reason we've seen the degeneracy in this country, in the United States. We have foreign intelligence agencies that infiltrate our universities, our media, with our politicians and get these things promoted. As an example, one of the things President Trump is doing is stopping all these foreign students going to Harvard. I was shocked to learn that the leader of China, that his daughter goes to, what was it, Harvard? What is she doing there, right? A lot of these deportations from the universities that Trump has been doing these are agitators, who, whether they're professors or students, that are there to disrupt. And a lot of the disruption we have in this country, it started in the 1960s, is through the colleges. If you go back to the Vietnam protest movement, that was through the colleges too. And it is a known fact that the college protests were started by the Soviet Union. Now, a lot of them sprung up on their own once they got the ball going, okay? But the Soviets were behind that. And today, whether it's Russia or China or whoever, a lot of this degeneracy that they're talking about, I'm not calling everything degeneracy, but the moral decay that they're talking about in this country is a lot of it's caused by China. I talked a lot about how TikTok was responsible for a lot of this, because some college kid or anyone would put a video up about one of these degenerate things, and all of a sudden it'd have 10 million views on TikTok. China was floating that stuff up on TikTok. And that started a trend because all that the young generation want is to go viral. So, oh, if I do this, I can go viral. So I think they had a lot of impact on the last 4 or 5 years through TikTok on making a lot of the moral decay a fad or a cool thing or a trend in the country. I agree with what Charlie Kirk is saying, but that's not the main reason that we've seen this moral decay in our country. It's foreign psyops in our media, in our movies, in our television, and in modern times, and things like TikTok. My name is Brian Craig. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. This is the Brian Craig Show podcast. We're on all podcast platforms and YouTube. We're going to take a quick break and be right back. Feeling lost in love, life, or are you struggling to find purpose? The answers you've been searching for are closer than you think. You just need the right help and guidance, and that's what you will find with Mentor Leah. Mentor Leah is an intuitive life and relationship coach with over 30 years of experience. She'll help you unlock the wisdom already within you. Through her guidance, you'll discover how to navigate life's decisions, align your spiritual gifts, and step confidently into the future you were meant to live. Start living the life that you've dreamed of, the life you deserve, and book your session with Mentor Leah right now online at lifelovesolutions.com and uncover your path to clarity, confidence, and success. That's lifelovesolutions.com. Your journey starts with a single decision. lifelovesolutions.com. Are you a tabletop gamer or just like to paint and display miniatures? Visit darkforgearts.com for a stunning collection of 3D printed models and get your hands on the perfect piece. Check out darkforgearts.com today. If you're in business, you know that first impressions are crucial. Your business deserves a website that stands out. With nearly 20 years of experience, ProWeaver is your trusted partner for professional custom design websites that are built to elevate your brand. ProWeaver doesn't use generic templates, just fully responsive, user-friendly custom websites that are tailored to you and the needs of your business. And the best part, ProWeaver delivers in just 3 to 5 days. That's lightning speed compared to competitors who take weeks. ProWeaver handles everything for you. Logo design to e-commerce solutions, SEO, and social media setup. They'll help you launch, grow, and dominate online, all at an affordable price. Don't wait. Get your custom website right now. Visit ProWeaver.com or call them directly toll-free 877-216-0852. 877-216-0852. ProWeaver.com. Affordable, dependable, fast. Did you know that every year, 95% of criminal cases never see a jury? They're decided behind closed doors through plea bargains. But what happens when those negotiations go wrong? Author Philip Mosier takes you inside the seismic 2012 Supreme Court rulings, Missouri versus Fry and Lafler versus Cooper, that changed everything in the book Plea Bargains on Trial. Available on Amazon. For the first time, the court recognized the right to effective counsel during plea bargaining, exposing the hidden pressure points that shape justice in America today. Filled with sharp legal insight, real-world examples, as well as powerful historical context, Plea Bargains on Trial pulls back the curtain on a system built on speed, but often short on fairness. If you're drawn to the complexities of law, justice, and the fight for true representation, Plea Bargains on Trial is a book you can't afford to miss. Order your copy right now on Amazon and see the system in a whole new light. Plea Bargains on Trial, from author Philip Mosier, on Amazon. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Craig. You're listening to The Brian Craig Show. Thanks for tuning in. So, Pete Hegseth, if you notice, since he got through all that confirmation, there's really been no controversies with him. They made such a huge deal when President Trump named Pete Hegseth to be the Secretary of Defense, and they came up with a bunch of BS. None of it was true, and it's all evaporated. And he's doing such a great job. And this is something that really blew my mind. I saw this story over the weekend. I'm like, are you kidding me? How is this possible? But listen to this. This is in all the news over the weekend. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has imposed sweeping new restrictions on press access within the Pentagon. Effective immediately, so this is already in effect as I'm speaking with you, journalists must now obtain official approval and be escorted by government personnel throughout most areas of the Department of Defense headquarters in Arlington, Virginia. That's the Pentagon. Announced on Friday, the Defense Secretary's newest directive includes press restrictions to locations that were previously accessible without oversight, such as the offices of top aides, service branch press rooms, and the Joint Chiefs. Really? The press had just unrestricted access at the Pentagon? That sounds completely insane to me. A lot of classified information going on there. And, not everybody in the press is friendly to the United States, even the American members of the press. So I wonder how many members of the press assigned to the Pentagon over the years that this has been the way it is have been spies for foreign governments. Would you be surprised? I wouldn't, because since they have access to all those areas, well, first off, how'd they get access to those areas, and when did that happen? There was a time when the press was loyal to our country. Like if you go back in time during the Second World War, the media, they wore uniforms like they were army officers. And remember, ever seen any old film footage of that? They weren't army officers, but they wore uniforms like they were. It just said press on it. And the uniforms were the same ones that the Army wears today because they brought back the World War II era uniform. And the ones I always saw them wear were the officers' uniforms. But they're not loyal. And I would imagine there's been a lot of spying going on. When they have access to those kind of areas, they become friends with people. I'm not necessarily talking about these generals and admirals, which they may become friends with them too, but lower level people that have all kinds of access and are there for decades, janitors, secretaries, people like that. And it's amazing to me how really weak this country has been governed, right? All the money they've been stealing that Doge found out about, and then things like this. How has America stayed in business? Why have we not collapsed with all this incompetency going on and all this corruption? It really, truly blows my mind. I wanted to show this to you guys. I saw this on X over the weekend, and it's sad. This is the young girl who was murdered by the American Islamic terrorist in D.C. the other night. Young, pretty girl, just whole life taken from her. And if you noticed, just a few short days after this terrorist attack, not just on U.S. soil, it was a terrorist attack, but it was a terrorist attack at our nation's capital, the first terrorist attack at our nation's capital since 9/11. And it's already disappeared from the news, hasn't it? It really, really, truly has. And the reason is because it doesn't fit in with what their agenda is. They have an agenda. It doesn't fit in with their agenda, so they want the story to disappear. If it were a MAGA guy who committed an act of violence like that against someone, it wouldn't have died off. It'd be in the news every second of every day. But it's one of their own, radicalized by the Democrats, who did something god-awful and horrific. So the media, they just want people to forget about it, out of sight, out of mind. And they think if they don't report it, it will be forgotten. And by some it will, but not with you and me, will it? That or President Trump. Terrorism is always god-awful and terrible. And for us in the United States, when it hits here in the homeland, it's super worse for us because it's here on our shores. And then it happens in our nation's capital. And if you notice, they don't even make the liberals, usually when something like this happens, they'll talk about gun control. I haven't heard any story. I'm sure it's been reported somewhere, but I haven't seen it because they're not highlighting it. Where did this guy get the gun, for example? Usually when these things happen, because the liberals are very much in the gun control, they want you to know everything about the gun and how easy it was and who they got it from and everything else that went along with it, because they have this gun. Hold on a second. We'll get to you in a moment, Governor Hochul. They want you to, hate guns and be in favor of gun control and everything else. So they focus on the gun. We know nothing about the gun, just like we don't know much about the Trump assassins either, right? Anytime the media don't turn something into gun control or tell you much about a perpetrator, there's something about that perpetrator that they're hiding. And typically it's that they share a political philosophy and they want it to disappear. And in this one, the shooter the murderer, the terrorist, he's not just an American liberal, because he is. He did something that no one would approve of or be sympathetic to, and that's kill 2 young Jews for being Jewish. And he wasn't even, he had no remorse after he did it. You know, when you saw him screaming, "Free Palestine," that was quite a while after the, remember, because after the shooting, he went in with the crowd, he was sitting down, nobody knew it was him, they were even trying to help him. And then he confessed, they called the police, so some time had passed. And he had no remorse. It was like, oh, what did I do? He was proud of what he did. Now, if you're in the state of Florida and you need roof repair or replacement, you want to call Tom Laporta at Laporta Roofing. He's a good MAGA guy. He'll take good care of you. He'll never sell you a roof you do not need, meaning that if you need just a simple repair, he'll do it. He covers the entire state of Florida, the East Coast, the West Coast, and everywhere in between. And did you know that Tom Laporta was voted one of the best general contractors and best roofers in all of South Florida? That is absolutely amazing. He's honest, he's knowledgeable, he's reliable, and he does incredible work. I've seen his work, not just on Steve Kane's house, but many of our listeners have told me about the great work that Tom Laporta has done for every type of structure. We actually had a listener that had a church roof. They call Tom Laporta about. Now remember, because Tom Laporta isn't just a roofer, he's also a general contractor. Florida law allows him to deal directly with your insurance company for the cost of the repair or the replacement of your roof. He can handle a job of any size, and he can also handle any type of roofing job. Residential roofing and repair, commercial roofs, schools, municipal buildings, office buildings, emergency repairs. You know, after rainstorms and hurricanes, we have a lot of listeners, they call Tom Laporta. He comes right out. He takes care of it. Give him a call. Now, this number rings directly to Tom Laporta's cell phone, okay? 954-604-4602. 954-604-4602. You can either call or text him. That's his direct cell phone number. Or go to his website, LaportaRoofing.com. So, Governor Hochul, who is, I don't know what she is. I mean, she's out of her mind, and she's a complete leftist. Here we have the deportations going on. There's incredible amounts of reform going on with social services throughout the entire country of cutting off illegal aliens from receiving social services, which they've been illegally receiving. No question about it. They've been illegally receiving social services, right? And they're getting cut off now. And she's not happy about this. This was a local interview she did. Listen, this is Governor Hochul. By the way, if you don't know, she's the governor of New York.
And people need to realize that elections have consequences.
Oh, yes.
And sometimes they're really negative. And this is an example of that. As I said, no state will be able to make up those kind of cuts. We just don't have enough money. And so people are going to be losing their health care. They're going to be losing care that we provide for members of the undocumented community.
Hear that?
I signed into law that we would take care of people over age 65 and people that have a new baby, moms for the first year, because I thought it was the right thing to do, to take.
Okay. So, you know, one thing that we've learned from Elon Musk and Doge is that the government has plenty of money, right? They don't need any more money. They've got plenty of it. Okay, so don't, you know, the Democrats who are trying to tell you we don't have enough money, what they mean is they don't have as much money to steal from, okay? Now that there's less money coming in, they're able to steal less. They're still stealing money, but they're not able to steal as much and for as many as they used to be able to. And, you know, it's amazing to me that Hochul will say, well, we won't have enough money to pay for the illegal. She says undocumented. See, this goes back to what I was telling you earlier. The Democrats have no understanding of what country they're in right now. What I mean by that is they don't understand where the country's heart and minds are right now, and they're not in favor of this. In fact, I would say not only is the country not in favor of any of this, it really never was. And a lot of people have been promoting woke ideology, who I don't think were woke or supported it at all. I think they were afraid not to support it. I think I'm not saying there aren't woke people out there and Hollywood's not woke. Of course they are, right? But what I'm saying is that they were afraid that if they came out, they thought that the country was in a place where it wasn't, right? They thought that the country was in this left-wing place. There was no escape from it. There was nothing we would be able to do. And if you voiced your opinion, you were a racist, a sexist, a this, you know. And what the re-election of President Trump did is let people know by the millions that that way that you think in your mind, that conservative way, that's the mainstream thinking in this country. Woke ideology is the minority viewpoint. Now, there are pockets of it, like the state of New York, okay? But if it wasn't for New York City, New York would be red. So you got one city, now it's a big city, but you have one city in a very large state. It's a big city, so a big city in a big state that's influencing the entire state. And that's true in other states as well that are blue, that a couple of blue pockets here and there have too much influence over the state as a whole, and not much we can do. I mean, like in California, there's more registered Republicans in California than are registered as Republican in the state of Florida. That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, I know. And this is a solid Florida, a red state. So, you know, but a lot of these places, these pockets, they still think the country is with them when it comes to the woke ideology. And guess what? It's not. And this goes back to what David Mamet was talking about, that these old school Democrats, these old men and old ladies like Hochul, that's all that's left around. She's the average age of your Tesla dealer protester. That's their party now, a bunch of old hippies. And as long as these hippies are around, they're going to keep promoting this woke ideology because they can't admit that everything they've been supporting in their whole life was not true. And I'll tell you, when President Trump was at the West Point graduation on Saturday, which I thought was phenomenal, that was a miraculous event. And I'll tell you why, okay? The graduates of West Point, I imagine for the most part, are between the ages of 22 and 24, right? I heard one guy say he was there for 5 years. I didn't know they were that long. I thought I heard a guy say he was there for 5 years. The guy that he brought up that broke a record in something. And I know, long time. That generation, so say they're 22, they were 12 when Trump came down the escalator. If they were 22, they were like 5, these like 5, 6, 7 years old, the oldest, but 5 or 6 years old when Obama became president. So these graduates of West Point, they have their only memories are from the time Obama was president until now. These guys that just graduated West Point are an adult, young adult, but an adult generation that have known nothing other than hardcore left-wing anti-American wokeism on all the different issues. And they love Trump. Don't they? Absolutely they love Trump. You could feel it, you could hear it, you could sense it. The ones that he brought up on stage, you could tell from the reaction of the cadets while President Trump was speaking, you could tell they love President Trump. I love him too. I know you guys do too. We understand it. But for a generation whose first president in their memory is Barack Obama, to be conservative, to be MAGA, like they were yesterday, they love Pete Hegseth, they love President Trump. That's amazing because they went to through our school system and boom. And, if Trump had not been reelected, I want you guys to think about this. What would have happened to West Point? What I mean by that is, if the wokeism in the military had continued, like say Kamala Harris had become president or Biden would have stayed president, what would West Point have been like in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years? I saw those cadets, the men and women. I wouldn't mess with them. They are tough, all-American guys and girls, aren't they? And to have a group of young people graduating, military academy, graduating college, right? Military college. To have a group of young people graduating any college, any institution of higher learning, whether it's a military academy like West Point or Annapolis, Annapolis Love JD, or a college, it really in so many ways is a miracle considering what they have been brainwashed with through their entire lives. And I was wondering if we were going to get any dissent from the cadet corps when President Trump went out there. I really was. And there was none. And you could feel the love in the crowd for President Trump. Without question, by the way, you could feel the love for President Trump. Now, speaking of schools, what's going on at Harvard, President Trump posted this on Truth the other day. Why isn't Harvard saying that almost 31% of their students are from foreign lands? And yet those countries, some not at all friendly to the United States, pay nothing towards their students' education, nor do they ever intend to. Nobody told us that. We want to know who these foreign students are. A reasonable request, since we give Harvard billions of dollars. But Harvard isn't exactly forthcoming. We want those names and countries. Harvard has raised $52 million. Use it. And stop asking for the federal government to continue granting money to you. These foreign students, they come here for a number of reasons, okay? A lot of them come here to become spies. They get into the Ivy Leagues, and they end up working in Silicon Valley or big institutions in New York, or they get big jobs. And they become very embedded spies in our country that are messing things around. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier when Charlie Kirk was talking about the moral decline. A lot of the moral decline are these spies that through their Ivy League education have the golden ticket in America and find their ways into all levels of American life and cause havoc. A lot of them come here and they take that education and go back. No, we're not against immigrants, okay? The First Lady's an immigrant. Elon Musk is an immigrant. They're naturalized U.S. citizens. But 31% almost, that's a big chunk of Harvard alone that are students from abroad. Why are we taking and can you imagine overall, I'd like to know what percentage of the student body at all the Ivy Leagues combined are from foreign lands, the main ones, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, the big ones, and Columbia. And that's a problem. That really is a problem. Our universities have been taken over, and I don't understand why we're giving billions of dollars to a school like Harvard. The tuition's high. They've got all kinds of intellectual property that they make money off of. There's no reason for schools like this in this day and age to get 10 cents from the United States. And all the schools have all kinds of ways to make money on their own. It's insane. These schools like this should all be cut off from federal funding. Now, I don't know with the billions, does that include student loans and grants that students get for college and things? I don't know what the breakdown is on that. It may not, but even if it does, it needs to be cut off. This is what's going on. When I was talking earlier, I mentioned that the Vietnam War protests came out of the universities. If you study the revolutions of the world, most of them started on college campuses in the countries and where these things started. That's a reality. And the left know this, they understand it, and that's why they go to these things. And the way it works, it's marketing. It's marketing 101, and the way I always explain it to people anytime I have this conversation is if you look at, as an example, Coke or Pepsi come out with a new Coke or Pepsi product. They whatever ad they do is with the young, hot celebrities at the time for young people. They don't try to sell me a new Coke or Pepsi product because I'm set in my ways, right? I'm drinking what I'm drinking. But young people, their minds haven't fully formed. They can be influenced. Well, that's what these leftists do at the colleges. These are young people. Their brains have not finished developing. They're stupid. They think they know everything because they've taken a couple college classes. They don't know anything. They have no life experience. And they can mold their minds into things. And that's why the revolutions of the world have started on college campuses, because the revolutionary people that are behind the revolution, the real power people, they know at the college campus they can influence young people to do all kinds of stupid and crazy things. And what President Trump is doing is the swamp draining he's doing is at a level that I don't think a lot of people understand. There's many things that are going on, but his targeting at the universities, deporting these terrorist supporters and agitators and organizers, and professors as well, cutting off Harvard, stopping the foreign students from coming. This is a very, very big part of the swamp draining. And it's going to be very effective. And if you look at everything he's doing, including with the universities, the majority of the American people are behind him because they understand what he's doing. There's a big picture going on with President Trump that we are not privy to, that he is, and what he's, and you know, the swamp draining's on many levels, like on Friday when Marco Rubio laid off 100 members of the National Security Council. Pete Hegseth replaced the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and is forcing a lot of the generals and admirals that are woke out. There's a big purge going on with the lower ranks of the military, enlisted and the officers below the rank of general, that Pete Hegseth is doing. There is swamp draining going on so many levels all the time. And I don't think everybody realizes it. There's a story here, and it's a controversy for a day. Then there's another controversy. But all of these things are swamp draining measures. My name's Brian Craig. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this. If you'd like to support the program, become a Patreon supporter. If you're a Patreon supporter, you have access to commercial-free editions of each and every podcast episode. And since I have upgraded the podcast to have a video version of the Brian Craig Show podcast, the audio version's still on all the podcast platforms, guys. But on YouTube and YouTube Music, I upload the video version. And Patreon supporters, not only do you have access exclusively as a Patreon supporter to commercial-free editions of the Brian Craig Show podcast, you get a commercial-free video version of it, completely commercial-free, if you're a Patreon supporter. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description of this and every episode on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And if you're one of our top Patreon supporters, you get a live on-air shout-out on each episode. Your name is in the description of the podcast episodes, and on YouTube and YouTube Music, your name as a top Patreon supporter appears on the screen while I go through the names like I'm about to do. So the following names are our top Patreon supporters. I want to thank Andrew and Connie, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, David, Laura, Rob, and SFjr. These are our top Patreon supporters. If you want your name on the screen and in the description, or you want to get those commercial-free editions of the podcast, go into the description of this episode. On whatever platform you're on, go to my Patreon page and become a Patreon supporter. Are you over 50 and want to feel stronger, look better, and live an active life like you did when you were younger? Then add Fit After 50 on Highway to Your Health to your podcast playlist. Fit After 50 gives you real-world advice from experts and everyday people just like you. Whether it's fitness, nutrition, or disease prevention, Fit After 50 host Keith and Rob bring you tips, strategies, and the motivation you need to take charge of your health. On Fit After 50, there's no gimmicks, no shortcuts, just science-backed actionable strategies and real talk to help you stay fit, feel good, and thrive at any age. Listen to Fit After 50 on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and iHeartRadio. Subscribe today and take your first step towards a healthier, stronger, and more energized life. True warriors don't follow trends. They forge legacies. At TacticalVikingBrand.com, they believe warriors are built, not born. Tactical Viking was inspired by the ferocity of Norse legends and the precision of modern fighters. Tactical fighting is more than just a brand. It's a way of life. They create apparel for those just like you who live by strength, resilience, and honor. Every battle-worn design tells a story of warriors who refuse to surrender. When you wear Tactical Viking, you're not just wearing clothing, you're wearing a legacy. Everything is a tribute to the warriors who gave everything so we could carry the shield forward. The burial flag on our sleeve isn't just a symbol, it's a promise that we will never forget the sacrifices made before us. Join the Brotherhood, forge your legacy, stand strong, stay ready, no surrender. Visit TacticalVikingBrand.com right now and view the inventory. You will be impressed, and use the code TACTICAL10 to save 10% off your purchase. TacticalVikingBrand.com. Forge your legacy. Wear the warrior spirit. Heart. The Flower Story by author Sean Feeney is a children's book that gives tribute to the unconditional love between a father and daughter. Inspired by a 2-year-old's bedtime request, The Flower Story follows the journey of a flower given by a father to his little girl, growing with her through the years. It's a story that blossoms with meaning, capturing those powerful moments only a dad and daughter can truly understand. The Flower Story is perfect for bedtime, story time, or anytime. It also includes a special section where dads can add their own personal message, making each book a one-of-a-kind keepsake. Whether she's 2 or 22, let her know your love grows forever. Celebrate Father's Day with The Flower Story by Sean Feeney. It's a gift she'll never forget. The only way to get a signed copy is on the author's website. Just type in 143 Art Publishing in the search bar and you'll find it right there. Looking for timeless furniture that blends beauty with function? Discover TKC Woodworking on Etsy, where craftsmanship meets quality, and every piece honors the natural elegance of hardwood. From stunning bookshelves to studio cabinets, floating shelves, and handcrafted coffee tables, everything is expertly crafted and designed to elevate your space. Whether you need practical storage or a statement piece, you'll find the perfect fit at TKC Woodworking on Etsy. You'll also discover incredible gifts that will be appreciated and passed down for generations. Exceptional materials, masterful craftsmanship built to last. Visit TKC Woodworking right now, online at tkcwoodworking.etsy.com. That's tkcwoodworking.etsy.com. Explore the collection. You will be impressed. tkcwoodworking.etsy.com. Handmade hardwood furniture and home decor. Now here's a story we really got to talk about. This is crazy. Here's Patriot Front. They're back, and now they're in Kansas City, Missouri. And we had thought they folded up. They're all wearing masks except the main guy. And most people, certainly MAGA people, most people have thought, and I do still think this, by the way, that Patriot Front are feds. Yeah. I have no doubt in my mind. Now, this Patriot Front may not be the original Patriot Front from the last few years. I don't know because, right, MAGA, we're the feds now. So if they're the feds, I don't think Kash Patel is behind Patriot Front. But I'd like Dan Bongino to investigate and find out who they are. And are these the same Patriot Front people from, the Biden regime? But why is the Patriot Front all of a sudden back out and about? Why do you think? It's pretty obvious. It's because of what's going on with the farmers in South Africa. The white farmers in South Africa, President Trump's bringing them over here because of what's going on there. And whether it's the feds or just the Democrats, I think it's feds, deep state, that are behind the Patriot Front. It's a psych ops operation. What they're trying to say is, hey, how can you be concerned about racism in South Africa when we have our own groups here that are doing the same thing? And that's where Patriot Front comes from. And let me go through this story. The Southern Poverty Law Center describes the organization, the Patriot Front, as a white nationalist hate group. That's right. As the Gateway Pundit previously reported, charges were dropped against the Patriot Front group leader in Idaho after 22 dupe recruits were found guilty in court. In June 2022, 31 members of the Patriot Front were arrested in Idaho for planning a protest at the Gay Pride rally. They were traveling to a Gay Pride event with homemade shields in the back of a U-Haul. I remember that. They had no other weapons. Despite committing no violence, they were arrested because they possibly could have. And now they have happened. So they're back now. They started in Charlottesville. I think that they got arrested by accident because it was local police that stopped the Patriot Front. And the local police stopped them and put something in motion. Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. I guess the deep state feds that are behind the Patriot Front didn't tip off local law enforcement that this was their operation, and they got arrested. Just like the golf course assassin. The golf course assassin in Florida that was caught was not meant to get caught. And he almost got away. The reason he didn't get away is there was a local woman was driving by, saw him run across the street from the golf course and followed him and got his license plate number and gave it to a local sheriff's deputy and put into motion what the people behind the assassination attempts on Trump didn't want to happen, and it went out on the radio, and local police got him, local sheriffs got him, and 2 different counties were involved in that. He was caught by accident. He was supposed to get away, and when they finally got him, he was actually pretty far away from the golf course. And that's the same thing that happened, I think, with Patriot Front when they got stopped in that U-Haul. They were supposed to get away, and they didn't get away. But I don't think anyone buys this, that Patriot Front is real and they're anything that anyone should be concerned about. I don't think anyone buys any of that. I think most people are well aware of what they are. But this is the kind of thing that Dan Bongino really needs to look into, because and I don't mean read a report, I mean do an investigation, because if they are feds, if it is the Democrats, which we all know it is, it needs to be proven and they need to be exposed, because this is a psyops that they're doing here. Some may call it gaslighting. Maybe it is gaslighting. But this is a psyop operation to cause division in this country and to create an illusion that there is an active white supremacist organization out there. And I believe they're fake. I know most of you that are Republican also believe they're fake. And to expose them and get that out there is pretty important. I was telling Steve Kane this morning that come August, it'll be 3 years since Dr. Philip Appleton rid me of pain for the first time. It was in my knee. And my knee had been hurting me since I was 20, 21 years old. So it had been 30 years of suffering. And sometimes my knee would act up. It was my right knee. It would act up so much, I just wanted to sit down and go to sleep, because the pain was so bad. And Dr. Appleton treated me, and I know it was 3 years ago because I remember a salesman from the radio station took me to meet Dr. Appleton. And I told Dr. Appleton about my knee. I got that free consultation that you can take advantage of too, the free consultation with Dr. Appleton. And he treated me with a laser treatment on my knee, which is 100% painless. There's no shots, no injections, no downtime. In fact, not only is it completely painless, you don't even feel it when it's happening. So that was on Thursday. The next day I woke up on Friday and my knee was already improving. I went for a second treatment on Saturday. First treatment Thursday, second treatment on Saturday, and then Monday the pain was gone. And 3 years coming in August, the pain has not returned, because the laser treatment doesn't just rid you of pain, it repairs the damage that's causing the pain. It's amazing. It works. And he's rid me of pain 6 times after that, for a total of 7, Dr. Appleton. We have listeners that travel literally from all over the United States to see Dr. Appleton. He is incredible. The laser treatment works on every type of pain I've ever heard of. Arthritis, which, by the way, he rid me of arthritis in my hand, bursitis, work and sports injuries, strains and sprains, repetitive motion injuries, post-surgical swelling, neck and back injuries, knee conditions, tinnitus, sciatica, spinal stenosis, fibromyalgia, plantar fasciitis, which I understand is incredibly painful, rotary tears, herniated disc, acute pain, chronic pain, and any type of pain you've ever heard of. Because I keep meeting listeners all the time with new pains I never heard of, and they're now living pain-free thanks to Dr. Appleton. Give him a call. Now, remember, appointments are not necessary. Walk-ins are welcome, even on Saturdays. Give him a call and say bye-bye to your pain. 954-973-0710. 954-973-0710. And online, AppletonCairo.com. Dr. Oz was on Fox today. There's a lot of talk about all these cuts in healthcare and everything. And really the only cuts that are being made are, of course, to corruption, but also a lot of the illegals that are illegally getting benefits. But anyway, here's Dr. Oz on Fox today.
The message for me is a very simple one. In every scenario I have seen, and I've seen, I think, most of them, we are increasing the amount of money we are spending on Medicaid, because we do have to support Americans who are most vulnerable. Great societies are judged by how they take care of people who are vulnerable amongst them. That stated, we have to make the program sustainable. We have to protect it. That's what the Republicans are trying to do. President Trump has said over and over again, publicly and privately, he wants to love and cherish these programs because he wants to love and cherish the people in them. But to do that, you have to make sure, for example, there are enough providers. If you don't pay providers, right, they do it for free, let's say, they can do that for 1 in 7 patients. But if you say, hey, listen, half your patients we're not going to pay you for, we're going to make programs that don't reimburse you, that doesn't work. Now providers begin to flee, and now we don't have enough, for example, mental health providers in rural parts of this country. There's much we can do as a country. It's a shared responsibility. We have to do it together. But the buck stops here. We've got to clean up the system. We're not paying $200 million for housekeeping anymore a year. We're not going to pay for illegal immigrants in states that are submitting those claims. Why should people living in Mississippi or Texas or Florida be paying for illegal immigrants getting health care in California? Yeah. As a nation, we need to be aligned to make this work. The message for me is a very...
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Oz, by the way, he stopped dyeing his hair. I wonder what that's about. The thing about Dr. Oz and what he said there, why are we paying for illegals to come here and have health care? I often say I do not have health insurance, but the illegals do, and I'm paying for it, right? It's crazy, and I know I'm not alone. Now, on Friday, or was it Saturday? I think it was Friday, I bought some Trump coin, and the Democrats are trying to make, and the fake news media are trying to make some scandal out of the Trump coin. This is Tapper. Maybe we were talking about him being red-pilled in the beginning of the show, but, he's still got to save face with his people. This is Tapper with MAGA Mike Johnson.
We are not cutting Medicaid in this package. There's a lot of misinformation out there about...
Oh, yeah, the next clip, I have a clip coming up about the Trump coin. I'll get to that in a minute. This is about the Medicare cuts.
We are not cutting Medicaid in this package. There's a lot of misinformation out there about this, Jake. The numbers of Americans who are affected are those that are entwined in our work to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. And what do I mean by that? You got more than 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid. Medicaid is not intended for non-U.S. citizens. It's intended for the most vulnerable populations of Americans, which is pregnant women and young single mothers, the disabled, the elderly. They are protected in what we're doing because we're preserving the resources for those who need it most. You're talking about 4.8 million able-bodied workers, young men, for example, who are on Medicaid and not working. They are choosing not to work when they can. That is called fraud. They are cheating the system. When you root out those kinds of abuses, you save the resources that are so desperately needed by the people who deserve it and need it most. That's what we're doing. We are...
Yeah. I mean, no one in the MAGA movement, in the Republican Party, is against helping people that are in need. We all hope it's there for us and want it there for us if we need it. But there's so much fraud going on. It's amazing to me how many, we talk about the illegals a lot, but it also amazes me how many grown men go through their entire lives and don't work. I don't know how that is. I know some guys like this in my life. I don't know how people do it. I don't know. They never work, and they seem to get by, and they seem to be happy. But there's no cuts going to Americans that are in need. Everybody knows this. It's just like Doge. What they're doing is they're cutting off the waste and the fraud. That's right, waste and the fraud. I want to talk about the meme coin. So I bought some of the Trump coin on Friday. And the reason I did is because, people are so upset about it. Like, well, let me buy that. They're trying to make a scandal out of the Trump coin, and they're trying to compare Trump's business dealings or the Trump organization or Trump family's business dealings to the business dealings of the Bidens. Here's the deal, okay? The Bidens don't have any business. Trump sells meme coins, golf club memberships, right? Hotel rooms, condos, right? What the Bidens were selling was America out. They don't have anything to sell other than favors. Okay, you pay us, we'll do this. We'll get the U.S. government to do this for you. The bribe money. Their business is accepting bribes. That's it. The Trump family are involved in legitimate businesses. Now, the only people I hear complaining about the Trump coin are people that don't own it, liberals. The reason that Trump is making a big deal about cryptocurrency, it's pretty simple. He believes that the cryptocurrency is here forever, and he wants crypto, all of it, based out of the United States, not in some former Soviet republic, okay? If it's going to be a big business and it's currency, so it's important, he wants it based out of the United States. That's it. And that's why he's involved in it. He's not really involved in it for a money-making thing. He's got plenty of money, Donald Trump and the whole Trump family, all right? They're billionaires. Many times over, they don't need to earn another cent, and they'll be fine, and their lifestyles won't change at all. But he's in it because it is a very, very popular thing worldwide, and he wants the United States to be the center of the crypto world. Remember, he spoke at that crypto conference during the campaign. So if he has his own meme coin, you know, the Trump coin, which I bought some on Friday, I don't know how it's doing, if it's up or it's down today. I never check. I'll look right now while I'm talking. I'm going to guess it's down today. Let's see here. Let me check if I can pull it up. Let me see. Since I bought it, no, it's just a little above where I bought it from on Friday at this moment. Now that could change in 10 seconds. Okay, you know how it is, but that's it. That's why he's in it. And I was trying to explain to a caller on Friday's show. Most people like me that are MAGA people, the reason we buy it is because it's Trump. It's almost like a souvenir almost to have the Trump coin. You're not buying it for an investment, you know. I don't worry about losing my investment. It's not a lot of money at all. It's really just a symbolic purchase I made, but there's no scandal there. And to compare Trump family business dealings with Biden family business dealings is crazy to me. It really is. The Bidens have nothing to sell other than political favors. That's bribery. Oh, yeah, but the Trump family they're making deals for Middle Eastern resorts. Think about what kind of statement it makes in the Middle East. You know, the Middle East has been ground zero for a lot of trouble in the world for a long time. And think about having Trump resorts in these Muslim countries throughout the Middle East. What that symbolizes, you know, lives could be saved because of Trump resorts in the Middle East. Really could. Really could. And that's a good thing. And, you know, it's unusual to have a president that has businesses because most of these presidents don't have any businesses. You know, the Clintons didn't own a house until after he left the White House. And he's not the first president to not own a house until after they leave the White House because they make a lot of deals as president and they get rich. A lot of them have not been wealthy so much when they become president. The Obamas were millionaires when he became president, but the Clintons didn't have a lot of money, but they do now. So what did they do to become rich? He's been out of office for almost 25 years. He's been out of office for 24 years, Bill Clinton. No job. So why are they worth so much money? Because they're being paid off for all the favors they did while he was president and her as a senator and her as a secretary of state. The Bidens are rich. What business were they in? That's right. Everybody knows. So, yeah, no, the Trumps have businesses. They're doing fine, and they're going to continue to do fine. But these resorts in the Middle East is really, it's a way to Americanize the Middle East, right? George W. Bush thought he was going to Americanize the Muslim world like we did the Germans and the Japanese after the Second World War. Well, how'd that work out, George Bush? Not very well. But Trump is doing it in a different way that will have long-term impact and will work. My name's Brian. Thanks for tuning in. This is where MAGA comes to talk. I'll talk to you next time.